Welcome to Town Talk, the official podcast of Summerville, South Carolina, where we bring you the latest news and incredible guests here in Summerville. And today I'm super excited to be with Thomas McNeal with EMD, the director of EMD here, right? Dorchester County
Correct.
EMD. So this is a really exciting episode because we are going to be talking not only about emergency management division or department, but we're also going to talk about all the hard work that goes into prep and preparedness, but also post-storm and post-disaster, right? But before we dig into that, I would love for you to just, share a little bit about yourself and kind of what brought you here to Dorchester County.
So it's saddle up. It's a long story.
I'm here for it.
So, like you said, I'm Tom McNeal. I'm the Director of Emergency Management here in Dorchester County. I've been doing emergency management for a number of years now, but I didn't start in emergency management. So I was a paratrooper in the Army, married a gal who was also in the Army, and when we both got out of the Army, we moved to her hometown of Topeka, Kansas. I'm originally from Maryland.
Okay.
And I became a police officer in the town of Topeka, Kansas.
Okay.
Topeka, and was on the SWAT team, all that kind of stuff. And, what most of us think of as disasters in the Midwest, it's just season.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's blizzard season. It's ice storm season. It's tornado season, right? So you're really good at working disasters, and you don't realize you're good at working disasters.
Yeah.
So I got deployed as a police officer to the state of Mississippi for Hurricane Katrina.
Okay, wow.
And caught the bug, right? Everybody in emergency management has a how'd you catch the bug? Because it's not, there's college degrees now, but there wasn't when I started in the industry.
Yeah.
It was a kind of a retirement home for fire chiefs and that sort of thing. But now it's not. It's a true profession now. And so I caught the bug. And within months of returning back to the state of Kansas, I quit the SWAT team, joined the state of Kansas, formed a statewide incident management team. One of the original members of that. So then I got to deploy to disasters as part of an incident management team. And really started really enjoying emergency management as a profession. Long story short, ended up divorced, remarried, moved back to the state of Maryland for me, and following my wife's career. And I decided to make the change into emergency management full time.
I love that.
So I ended up getting a job with the Howard County, Maryland, which is a bedroom community county between Baltimore and D.C.
Okay.
And it is the center of the universe for bad things that happen in Maryland for whatever reason. And I got a ton of experience.
Yeah.
I got to travel all around the country, working major disasters at all levels of the incident management team.
Yeah.
I was the planning section chief for the Baltimore riots. We had an entire town in the town of Ellicott City, Maryland, which is in Howard County, was completely destroyed by a flash flood. And I spent a whole summer putting that town back together. So I got to do a lot.
Yeah.
And fast forward, I ended up working as an emergency management manager, director of security, director of risk management for the Howard County Public School System for several years. Very large school system in Maryland. And then wanted to get back into emergency management full time. I have family that live down here. So I put a bullseye around the state of South Carolina. This job came up and it's been perfect.
Yeah.
I love it here. Absolutely love the culture of the community,
Yep.
but also the culture of emergency management in the state of South Carolina, especially in Dorchester County, how it is viewed, how it is propped up and held in the right level of government. A lot of times you find emergency management gets tucked in somewhere. It's a break glass in case of emergency agency. But because it doesn't have enough rank as an office, where we're a true department here, we're not part of the sheriff's office. We're not part of the fire department. We are a standalone office.
Yeah.
That it carries the weight of an actual department, so that you're not a surprise guest to other people's meetings.
That makes sense.
And it changes things because your peer group is the other directors, the other chiefs, the sheriff's office. And same with working with the municipalities, working with the town.
Yep.
That you're not a who are you?
Oh,
I know you. You're the director over there.
Yep.
So it takes away a lot of that. And so I've been here a little over 2.5 years now.
Okay.
And I'm loving it. My wife and young son, are here with me.
I love that.
And we love everything that the Charleston region and the Somerville area and
Yep.
Dorchester County, Greater Dorchester County have to offer.
Yeah, no, and we're glad to have you here.
Yeah.
I think emergency management is super important, and we'll dig into that as we go into this conversation. But I want to touch base on your career and your path to here. It's in depth. There's a lot that took place to get you to where you're at today. And I always find that so interesting because everyone's story is so unique. I love listening to everyone's story because some people it's right place, right time, and some people it's a grind to get from they start right at the bottom and work their way up the ladder, right? And there's no right or wrong way of getting to a position or getting to somewhere in your career, but it's always your story is incredible. And I think it's really I would say admirable, kind of everything you've done and how much you've given back to the communities you served, especially Kansas. I went to Kansas once, and I remember flying in, and it was so flat. I mean, it looked like a piece of paper flying into Kansas. I couldn't believe it, but I only went there once. But no, I love that. So when it comes to this role, is this kind of what you like once you got that bug, right? Is this where you envisioned yourself being in this type of role?
A little, right? Yeah. I didn't know what I didn't know at the time when I kind of got interested in it.
Yep.
Joining the incident management team, and a lot of that was I was so frustrated as a police officer serving in a law enforcement capacity in the state of Mississippi. In the town of Pass Christian, Mississippi, which was wiped off the face of the planet by the actual storm surge from Hurricane Katrina, that the system was so broken, right? And we'd already had 9/11, and we were supposed to fix it all, and we didn't. As a whole nation, we still didn't take emergency management seriously. Not truly. Some did, but most didn't. So the response there in Mississippi was way better than the response in Louisiana at the time, but it was still broken.
Yeah.
And as a law enforcement officer, I couldn't fix it because I wasn't part of the command staff.
Okay, that
so
makes sense.
Well, how do I get in that room? How do I fix it? Right.
Yeah.
So that's what really got me interested in emergency management and getting on the incident management team. But then as I got to deploy more doing that, I got to see and I got to help. And that's a big thing for me.
Yeah.
That's why I got into law enforcement and a career in public services. I always want to be the guy who wants to help.
Yeah.
And so as time went on and as I grew within the profession, then yes, I did see, I want to be a director. And even when I went to the school system, I wasn't like I was one piece removed because you're managing a school system's response, but you're not managing local response anymore. That's what I want to get back to. So that's where I started looking again to where can I go?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Let's find that. And, for a few years I thought, I'll go to FEMA. I'll go,
Yeah.
But the local response, the county level director, if you are truly in love with emergency management, this is the gig.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense.
This is where you get to make the biggest difference. You get to manage your own disaster. You're not doing it from afar. Your boots on the ground.
It's personalized,
it's
right?
Very personal.
You know the people you're serving.
Right.
They're the people you see at the coffee shop or you pass at the grocery store, right? You have relationships with these people.
They're your friends and neighbors and coworkers.
Yep.
And when a disaster strikes here, they're victims too.
Mm-hmm.
You're a victim.
Yep.
So you're solving your own problems. You're solving your neighbor's problems. You're fixing your community.
There's something about that that's just special, and it makes you want to just work harder. You know what I mean?
And it's a little bit. I tell people all the time, emergency management's a little bit like being a roadie for Metallica, right?
Yeah.
Metallica's awesome. I love Metallica, but it's the roadies that set it up, keep it going.
Yep.
Get those guys on stage. Get them off stage. Pack it up. Move it. And no one knows other than every now and then a guy in a black shirt runs out and changes the microphone.
Yep.
That's emergency management.
Yeah.
Right? No one at the end of the day.
That's a good way of putting it.
They all say, the local officials did such a great job. And the emergency manager standing off the side of the stage going, that was my team.
Yeah.
That did all that.
Yeah.
That fixed this town. That brought it back. But we're also the ones that can fail.
Yeah.
Right? So a lot of it is that prep work. All that work that needs to be done ahead of a storm, ahead of time, to train folks and make sure that they know what their piece of the pie is because the emergency management team is small and you can't do it all yourself.
For sure.
Everybody has a role. Everybody in county government has a role. All of your non-governmental partners have a role. And you need to make sure that everybody is on the train, sitting in the right seat, moving in the same direction, and knows where they're going.
Yeah,
and
team.
It's got to be a team.
Yeah. And I know you brought up a point. I want to dig into it a little bit more, but why do you think emergency management wasn't taken, I better use the term seriously, for a long time all over the country? Why do you think that is?
Yeah, a lot of it is, lightning rarely strikes twice in the same spot. Right? So
that's a good point.
A community that goes through it and really gets their butt kicked comes out on the other end an expert in getting their butt kicked, right, and recovering from it. But rarely is that information shared. And even if it's shared, it's not really listened to. You go to a national conference and you hear somebody talk about their town, their city being destroyed by the earthquake, the hurricane, whatever it is, and you take a few notes and you come back, and then you're walking into rooms where you may not have the power to change things. And emergency management is always, for everyone else other than my team, it's an additional duty.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not something a lot of folks want to spend a great amount of time on, especially if it's not personal to them. If they haven't had a disaster in a long time, if they haven't experienced it, if they they didn't go, their professional conference doesn't talk about it.
Yep.
So it's I think there was just a lot of head in the sand.
Yeah.
I think there was also a lot of bravado and we'll be fine and I'll take care of it and those kinds of things.
Kind of thinking, not like it's going to be like,
right.
Just kind of pushing it to the side.
A lot of shooting from the hip.
They didn't want to people just didn't want to own up and be real about the possibility of something serious happening. Right. And being prepared for it. They just kind of wanted to ignore it, thinking it wouldn't happen to them.
It won't happen here.
Yeah.
And if it will, I'll just manage it like any other crisis that I manage. But, I tell my team all the time, understanding how big is big, how bad is bad. And a huge disaster is almost easy because everybody's coming to help.
Yeah.
And there's money being thrown at you. Now, it's hard to get into the long-term recovery because eventually that stuff goes away. But it's the, medium-sized events. And a lot of folks are really good. You talk to your emergency services folks. They are excellent at small events. They do it all day long. Every day there's a something. Right? There's a major car wreck. There's a house fire. There's problem. And they solve those problems. Rarely without ever calling my office. Right? They don't need my help. Right, but it's when you start getting into that middle ground, it's that somewhere between a small event and a really big one, that middle ground, like we had a couple of weeks ago. With
that storm. Yeah, that was crazy.
The rest of the county's fine, but those few neighborhoods got hammered.
Yeah, it was
absolutely hammered.
The damage from that storm was incredible. Worst I've seen from a hurricane in the years. That has come through here. It's crazy.
Right, that's Cat 3 level tree damage.
It's amazing. So, I was baffled. Right. It just, what was it, like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and all of a sudden, 7. You probably know better exactly the number. Minutes. And in 7 minutes,
right?
Trees all over the place, down, power outage, and damage to homes and businesses. It was crazy.
Right.
It was crazy.
And that's the kind of stuff that
you get called into.
That's where I'm called in and have to bring the right other people together to solve the problem together. So
that's a good segue because that was a recent event that I'm sure most of our listeners I'm pretty sure are aware of and know about. So from when that situation happened, obviously I don't think any of us knew that was going to happen. There was nothing to tell us like, oh, this is going to be a microburst.
Right.
We just thought it was a big storm coming through, right? So talk through start to finish the process of when that storm came through and what you guys had to do.
So it's interesting that you say that about it's just a thunderstorm, but every thunderstorm produces lightning or can produce lightning.
Yeah.
Thunderstorm is lightning, right?
Yeah.
Every thunderstorm can produce a microburst. Every thunderstorm can produce a tornado. Every one.
Very good point.
Right? And but we get lulled into these false sense of security. It's like when we talk about hurricanes and people say, "Oh, rain with a name."
Yeah, I've heard that before.
Yeah, because it's the last 10.
Yeah.
But it only takes one, Right?
Yeah, I guess
people,
you just never know. Like,
right.
It might be a thunderstorm, but it's the
Right.
one that produces a tornado.
Right.
Or you just don't know.
Or that one bolt of lightning that hits the pool.
Right.
And zaps all the people in the pool.
Yeah.
That's the stuff that's real. But everybody goes, we're shocked.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
It's that's a major problem that, we try to preach. We try to prop up our National Weather Service partners as best we can as they try to preach constantly, weather safety, thunder roars, go indoors, all that kind of stuff.
Of course.
As we're watching it, I literally stepped outside, being a guy from the Midwest, you can look at a cloud a little differently and go, hang on.
That's right. You were in the Midwest,
right.
so you had that eye.
I've seen big.
Yeah.
Right? I've seen the 60,000 foot wall clouds coming.
Yeah.
Where the sky's green and the air's blowing into the storm.
Yeah.
Because it's sucking the air in.
Yeah.
In about an hour, we're going to get our butt kicked.
Yeah.
So I was feeling that, right? I'm watching this storm roll through, and then I experienced hail where I live out near Summers Corner.
Yeah, it got hit over there.
We got hail.
Yeah.
And so I'm calling it into the weather service. I'm standing in my garage watching it hail, hoping my cars aren't getting destroyed.
Yep.
And then, I'm talking to dispatch, and it, interestingly, how for the amount of damage that happened off of Trolley Road there to those neighborhoods,
Yep.
how few 911 calls came in.
Hmm.
Because people had trees down, but there weren't a whole lot of trees like through a roof.
It makes sense. So
They're
a ton
all
of trees, but avoided the power line, avoided the
like
roofs.
Nobody was injured.
Yeah.
Nothing was on fire. Houses didn't collapse. So for the amount of damage, when I'm calling into the dispatch, they're like, oh, we got some trees in a road over here, and we got this and that. I'm thinking, okay, big thunderstorm. But I still didn't realize
the impact. Yeah.
For a few minutes. Like, it took a little while for us to wrap our arms around, wait, no, this was big.
Yeah, I can relate with that because as a public information officer, usually I'm one of the first people they message. If not, it's the other PIO, like the PD's PIO. And when I first got under, because I live out in, and don't hate me for this, but I live out in Moncton Corner. I used to live in Somerville, but I moved in. Over there, there was nothing. I mean, it was nothing. And so I got a call, and they're like, hey, there's something, it's a few trees down. I started getting some alerts and texts on my phone.
Right.
So was like, okay, what's going on? And it was kind of the same thing because I'm like, okay, it was just a few little things, nothing too crazy.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, it's just like, whoa.
Right.
Whoa. And then you're seeing the videos on social media.
Right.
And of the interstate. That was a big one that a lot of people saw. The interstate. So you had that same experience.
I actually had staff that went to Berkeley County to assist them.
Yeah.
Because they had a bunch of them go.
That's right.
Trees go through trailers.
Yep.
Trailer park.
Yep.
And so they had serious stuff going on right away. Had injuries. Had all kinds of stuff. I sent staff to help them, still not knowing the first couple hours how bad it was in our own town.
And that's so crazy to me.
It takes a minute sometimes.
Because a microburst, in case anyone is not familiar, can you explain a little bit of what happened there? Because maybe a lot of people thought it was a tornado. It wasn't a tornado.
It was not a tornado.
So can you explain what happened?
So we had the National Weather Service come out the next morning.
Yeah.
And they did a survey.
Mm-hmm.
They're the experts, and they're the only ones who get to declare what it was, declare wind speeds.
Yeah.
And they declared it a microburst of 80 to 85 mile an hour winds. So the best way for me to describe a microburst to people, it's faster moving air that's higher above the ground, that's constant, right? And that gets diverted like a sliding board down to the ground. So I also explain to people, it's like if you take a 5-gallon bucket of water and you dump it, it's going in a forward motion, so most of the water goes out in front of you, but some of the water gets your feet wet.
Yep.
So it's that air coming straight down. It hits the ground and shoots across the ground. But a little bit of it goes in all omnidirectional.
Yeah.
People say, well, shouldn't everything be laying this way? Well, some of it bent that way, snapped back the other way.
Yeah.
But it is straight line winds. It's considered straight line winds, and it is incredibly fast, strong winds.
Is it rare?
Last. It's fairly rare.
Because I've never heard of it before this event.
And it's wide. It was like a 1.5 miles wide.
That's amazing.
It's just the air currents come down through the storm and blast you.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
It really is.
And so that's the importance of being prepared, right?
Right.
Because like you said, we all think it's just a thunderstorm, right? But then your car's damaged, your house is damaged, or there's a tree you have a dead tree next to your house that's going to potentially fall on your house.
Exactly.
And so being prepared and understanding that something just like that comes out of nowhere. Because with a hurricane, we're about to dig into hurricane season because that's one of the big topics I want to talk about. But with a hurricane, you have advance notice.
You got days.
Yeah. Not with like a tornado or with a microburst or anything like that. So,
but there's tornadoes and microbursts within a hurricane.
Exactly.
So that these are all things, but it's also about what you're used to. Right?
That's a good point.
If you live in the Midwest, when I first moved to Kansas, and they got the news guys coming on talking about the tornadoes on the ground and what county, and I'm screaming to my wife, "What county is Clay County? How close are we? They got a tornado." She goes, "Tell me when it's across the street. We'll go outside and watch it." That's what she said to me. I was like, "Are you crazy? It's a tornado."
It's just another day.
But she grew up there, right? I took people from Kansas on a deployment to Louisiana for a hurricane, and as soon as another hurricane was coming behind that one that we were working, they wanted to leave because to them it was the biggest tornado they've ever seen. It spins, it's round, it's a tornado. We gotta go. But I grew up in Maryland. I was a little bit more accustomed to the hurricane world. I wasn't scared at all. So it's all about whisper ice storm here, whisper snow here. See what happens.
You're right though.
But you grow up north, and you're like, how many feet?
You're right, because I grew up in Erie, Pennsylvania, which is right on the lake, and we got lake effect snow.
Sure.
And I would say for probably a solid 7 months, 8 months of the year, I would say seven, we are literally driving and doing everything on feet of snow.
Yeah.
Everything.
Right.
And it's crazy. Right. It's crazy because I was so used to driving in the snow. I had a little car. I remember all the time driving to school, and I would just end up in a ditch, and no big deal. I would have someone come and pull me out, and then I'm off to school. That was just normal.
It's part of life.
But then there's a little, dusting here. Everything's closed.
Right.
But I was expected to be at school at 8, and not, back. You're right. What you're accustomed to, it does make a difference.
I mean, the amount of rain that you get here in a single rain event where you're getting inches of rain.
I wasn't used to that when I moved here.
That's significant, but people here are like, oh, it's low country. The streets will flood for a little bit and they'll be fine. They don't even think about it.
You just put on your rain
it's
boots.
all about what you're used to.
That's crazy.
And that's an important thing, because that's where people are sometimes very surprised by a weather phenomenon, because it's uncommon here, but it's not unheard of.
But do you think that's also a negative, because people then get comfortable, right? Because for me, I could drive like nobody else in the snow. When there's a dusting, I'm just going to go normal speed. You still have to be careful. And so what you're accustomed to, I might be able to drive in the snow.
Right.
I might not understand kind of the feeling of it, right? But then people get comfortable. And they kind of lose. So do you think that is also...
Oh, yeah. There's a false sense of security. And people only remember the last one as far as where their comfort level is. So every time we get a hurricane through and people say, rain with a name, right? And they go, oh, yeah, I lost some tree limbs. No big deal. I didn't, but it's been a long time since Hugo.
Yeah.
But when you talk to folks who lived through Hugo and you bring up Hugo, their mindset changes, because they go, oh, Hugo. Well, it's been a long time since Hugo. So some people still want to trade off that, oh, well, we experienced Hugo. Well, you were 10. When Hugo hit. That was a long time ago. What did you experience? What did you actually experience? You were scared in your home. You didn't run it. You didn't manage it. The folks that managed that have long since retired. That education, and whatever they imparted on the folks they left behind is still there, but most of it left with them.
It's not. They might have that education, but do they have that real life experience? It depends on where you came from, right? And
or where else have you been? What else have you seen? How bad is it? What are the things that you've seen that you have to guard against as you write your own plans and you build your own stuff? And, that's important to know. And that's, I tell people all the time, as we talk about like evacuations or something, I was like, I don't want you to evacuate. I don't ever want you to evacuate because I got to manage it. I got to manage evacuation. I got to open shelters. I got to manage shelters. I got to do special needs shelters. I got to figure out what I'm going to do with your pets. It's hard. It's a lot of work. Anything I can do to not have to do all that, believe me, by the time I've asked you to leave, that's the last thing I want to do. Yeah. Right? So if I've gotten to the point
you've tried everything else.
I'm like, okay, let's ask them to evacuate.
Yeah.
Let's get the governor to declare the evacuation. I mean, we've tried everything not to.
Yeah.
So by the time it gets to that level, it's of that importance.
Yeah. And so I think that, again, that's a great segue to hurricane season. We're here. We're in it. Yeah. There's hurricanes brewing as we speak right now. And one actually going through the U.S. right now. So here in South Carolina, especially here on the coast, we are accustomed to hurricanes. It's something that is we're all familiar with. Yes. Fortunately, knock on wood, we have been relatively lucky the last few years.
Yes.
But how long will that luck run, right? Just like you said, it's been a while since we've had Hugo. Yeah. But what's stopping from another Hugo happening? Right. So let's talk about hurricanes, and let's talk about hurricane preparedness, because one of the big things about EMD is helping people prepare for these disasters. So to start, what are some, I guess when a hurricane's coming into our area, what's that process like for you guys and your team?
So we start watching storms as they come off the Horn of Africa. Right?
Yeah, all the way down. Yep.
We're watching it, before it's even on the local news here.
Yep.
We're watching it. And we're starting to have those chats.
Yep.
Right? Amongst other emergency management professionals, amongst meteorologists.
What if?
We're just having chats.
Yeah.
What do you think? What about this? What about... And then we're starting to watch the models. Mm-hmm. And, way further out than, they're going to change 100 times by the time it gets to where it's relevant to us.
Yeah.
But we're watching.
Yep.
Right? That's just part of our culture. We watch weather every day. We're all... Can't be in emergency management and not be a little bit of a weather nerd.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like you all are weather nerds. That as you should be, right?
That's part of the gig.
Yeah.
Right? So we spend a lot of time doing that, and then so as it clicks a little closer, we actually have what we call a reverse timeline for when we think it's going to hit or could possibly hit for days out, 5 days out, especially a written reverse timeline.
Yeah.
Day number 5 before it hits, you're in the cone.
Yep.
What should we be doing today? What should we be doing tomorrow as government?
Yep.
Right? Well, citizens should have that same sort of mentality. Right? Okay, it's 5 days out. Now it's safe. Today's a safe day to probably, let's check the gutters.
Yep.
Let's start the process of, let's get some furniture that's outside put away. Let's start that process, or at least think about how we're going to do it.
Yeah.
That you should already have plans for, if I have to go, where am I going to go?
Yep.
You should already have a kit. You should already have a lot of this stuff, but that's the good time to bust it out and say, oh, wait, I ate all those snacks.
Right,
I need to replenish.
Yeah.
Oh, this can hasn't been opened in years. I probably need to get another can. It's way past the due date. But you have time leading up to it. I'm always surprised, really, the people who it's the day before who suddenly are like, oh, this is happening. Where you're like, don't you watch the news? And,
the water's gone. Right. And everyone's at the store.
And now there are people who don't have the means.
Yeah.
And those are the folks that traditionally we have to help. We have to help, get the nonprofits and the churches involved and all that to help folks.
Shelters.
Shelters who don't have the means to help themselves.
Of course.
Transportation, all that.
Of course.
But folks who are able and have the means, I should never have to help them.
And I think, y'all, the county, the municipality, the town, we all push guides and different things to help you prepare. And I will link them in the bio here because some people might not see it, and that's okay. You might miss it. But I think it's important to just look it over and see. I know you guys have a guide that you created,
state
right?
guide.
The state guide. Yeah. So that's the one I use. It's an incredible guide.
Great resource.
And I mean, from start to finish, gives you all the information you need, and then how to prep, right? But so we'll link that in the bio. But so when it comes to that build up, and so the hurricanes come in, and then obviously we're pushing out information saying, hey, we're watching this, yada yada yada, making sure the community's informed. That's also very important. When does it get serious? When does it start? Start breaking a sweat in your role?
So when it's how big, right? How fast is it moving, right? A tropical storm, people say, oh, it's just a tropical storm. Well, is it moving slow? Is it going to
sit? Is it going to sit?
Is it going to sit and rain for days on us, and now we're going to have incredible flooding after the fact? That's what I'm measuring all the time is what else is going on. What will be my impacts to the community be that I have to brace for? That's obviously big is bad, right? The higher category it is bad.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 being the worst. A
tropical storm can do a lot, as far as flooding and
of course,
everything else. So, that's what gets me going is what am I looking at here?
The size, the speed, and looking at the actual stats of the storm.
The impacts that might be coming.
And then looking and seeing where it's going to be too. Like, is it going to hit land before us and weaken, or is it coming directly to Charleston?
So by the time I'm 5 days out, I'm not sleeping.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
I'm up every few hours looking at the new models that come in. It's just, that's part of it. Eventually I'm just here and I'm not leaving. Right?
Yeah.
A couple days out, I'm sleeping in the office.
Yeah.
Because I can't go home. I've already taken care of my house. I've done all that. My family's prepared to evacuate if they need to, or to shelter in place if that's the best answer.
But at this point, your job is to prepare the community at this point, and to help folks, and when it comes to like you said, the shelters and getting information out, it's making sure they understand what's going on, or if evacuation needs to happen, right? So
it starts with meetings. It always starts with meetings, right? And once a day, and then twice a day, we're getting the municipality leaders together with the county leaders. So everybody's talking, right? We're getting reports from the National Weather Service. We're talking to the state.
Really starting to become a team at that point, right?
And then, people start to trickle into the Emergency Operations Center.
Yep.
And some of it just starts with I just need to make sure I can log in. Make sure the computer works. I'm good. Is all my cheat sheets here? Do I have enough pens? People come in and check their station. Yeah. And then people start attending meetings in person. In the EOC, and then eventually when you're 24 hours out, people are just here. It might be longer if we're doing evacuations, running shelters. Once we have to do those kinds of operations, we're active in the EOC. The folks that run those types of missions are here 24 hours a day, because you can't not be here if you have an actual shelter open. Yeah, because they might have needs at 2 a.m. Yeah, so you have people here.
I do want to talk a little bit about the new EOC that we're actually in right now. Yeah. But beforehand, I want to just still stick on the hurricane and talk about like the evacuation and when folks like sandbags and tips and tricks and all this fun stuff. Because when like you said, we talked about evacuation when it's being said, we mean it. Like we tried everything else. But we're going to get people who just won't evacuate. People who say it's a storm with a name, right? How do you combat that as an EMD? Because I think you try your best to inform and tell people to prepare, but at the same time, it's what we just talked about, that comfort level. It's not going to happen to me, right? But what if, right? Do you want to take that risk? No, we don't want our community to take that risk. Just go somewhere safe for a few days, just in case. How do you combat that?
So right now in our community, especially with our extreme growth rate, we have a lot of folks moving into the area who've never lived in hurricane country before. So they've been kind of my target audience here as of late, because they're either completely oblivious to it or they're terrified. And rarely is it someone in the middle. So I've been trying to, you just have to information is key. Right? You have to teach them
For sure.
everything that they need to know.
What does OPCON mean?
Right.
Yeah.
And who should you be listening to?
Watch first warning.
Right? Who is your trusted source of information?
Yeah.
Because everybody goes straight to the social media world.
Yeah.
Not even realizing that some of the stuff on there, people just lie.
It's clickbait.
It's clickbait.
It's trying to get
lies. It's foreign actors who are creating stuff, just wanting to create chaos. Even
fear,
disaster.
Fear is the number one, and this is a little nugget for our listeners and watchers. But fear is one of the number one ways to get an audience attention when it comes to communication. So when it comes to media or social media, using fear is one of the ways. So just be careful when you, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think this is important to bring up, is the fact that when you see information coming from the town or the county or EMD, it's not out of fear. We're not trying to cause fear.
Exactly.
We're giving you the information that we have. So me personally, and this is my opinion, but I would follow your local, your local governments and your counties and the information that they're pushing out before anything else. Right. That's my opinion. But I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think
it's not even an opinion; it is a fact.
I agree.
It is a true fact. That where do you get your
I mean, local news is great. Our meteorologists are great. Yeah, obviously. But again, our local news stations are usually getting their information from EMD or from the town or from they're getting it from us.
Right.
And so it give or take. So if you want to go directly to the source. The National Weather Service is another great one.
And it'd be interesting for everyone to know that the National Weather Service, emergency managers, and TV meteorologists are on an app that's managed by the National Weather Service where it's just us.
How cool. I didn't even know that.
So when you see your TV meteorologists when they turn from the green screen and they're typing on a computer, they're talking to me. They're talking to the National Weather Service. Yeah. We're discussing the phenomenon as it's occurring, sharing information where they say, hey, one of our listeners just called in and said this. Anybody got any ground truth on that? That conversation is happening real time as they're broadcasting, because we know they have the biggest audience. And it's a partnership.
It is.
Right?
We're a team.
And I would say that, your news meteorologists aren't the news, right? They are meteorologists, right? They take pride in their work in a professional manner.
Absolutely.
And they are not clickbait. They are not.
No, they're not.
Right. And so that team of folks, and it's because it's a lockdown app, you don't have who's this person, so you can say anything. You can have those conversations about, do you know about this? And then that's huge.
That is huge
for us to know we're all speaking with the same voice.
It's communication and effective.
Information's the same.
I love that.
Right?
That's amazing.
And that helps us to spread the word that much faster, because
I love that.
Especially then, all your news stations and stuff, it's all same team. On that day, right? Because people have their favorites, and we don't want one group who watches this channel versus that channel to get wrong information because we're not sharing with each other.
For sure, yeah.
So it's fast.
Yeah.
And it's very important.
I love that. I love that.
And the same thing holds true with here in Dorchester County, how we share information amongst the different department heads, but also with our municipalities and our department heads with, the local governments there and the department heads within the municipalities. Same thing. It's the same mission, same information. We're sharing information. We're making sure we're vetting each other's stuff before one of us accidentally says something wrong or says something too soon. So that collaboration is key. And political leaders have made their, won or died politically by how they manage a disaster.
Absolutely.
But Rudy Giuliani ran for president after 9/11 when he did so well and became America's mayor. Yeah. Right? He used that currency to run for president. Yeah. But when's the last time you heard of the governor of Louisiana during Hurricane Katrina? Yeah, right. She went away. Yeah. Right? Because it was such a failure that she took the hit, she went away.
Yeah, took it to the chin and just kind of moved on.
Yeah. Right. So the best, there's no disaster that doesn't somewhat become political. as they fight for money, fight for resources, or sometimes you have politicians who see the opportunity and try to make a name for themselves, right? The best ones operate that same way as what I was just talking about with the meteorologists and emergency managers, where they hang it up for the next week. Right?
Yeah.
We're not going to fight about politics for the next week. We're all going to do what we're supposed to do as local elected leaders or state elected leaders or even national elected leaders.
Yeah.
We're just going to help.
Focus on our community.
We're going to focus on our constituents and help them and do what we need to do.
Absolutely.
It works so much better.
And I feel we are very fortunate with the leadership we have with the county and the town, that we have that type of leadership in our circle that allows for that is community oriented. I think we're very fortunate because that's not common everywhere.
It's not common.
And
it's rare.
It is rare. And so I think for our community, we should feel very fortunate to have that.
I've worked a lot of disasters in a lot of different places around the country, and there are very few places like this. Where on game day, one, they're going to listen. Yeah. Right? And two, they're going to work with each other and work with you, and it's a collaborative effort.
Absolutely.
And that's huge.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate that here.
Absolutely.
And disasters are called disasters for a reason, right? It's bad. Otherwise it's just a regular bad day. We have bad days all the time.
Yeah.
Right? It's disaster. But you don't want to be part of the disaster.
No.
And that happens way too often. And that's where the people are inexperienced and they're scared and they're making decisions based off of emotions and fear and or anger. They're not being thoughtful. And you also don't have the luxury of time. I tell people all the time in emergency management, when you're managing a disaster, you're doing a week's worth of work every day. You're doing a day's worth of work every hour. Because the disaster moves so fast. It's project management. That's all it is. But it's project management on steroids. Like, you're just hustling. Yeah. And you're not sleeping and you're not eating, and people have to remind you, that have you eaten today?
Yeah.
You're like, I don't even know what today is. you're on the hamster wheel. And you're going. Feelings get hurt. It's it is. You have to be a little bit thick-skinned, and because you're hustling, and the public demands that, and the disaster itself demands that you move quickly. Absolutely. Because you're trying to help people not lose everything or to restore their lives. Yeah. And anyone who's ever experienced, major loss of property. Yep. House burnt down or whatever. It's not a house burnt down where the whole neighborhood can help you. The whole neighborhood burnt down. It's everyone is standing in the street in their pajamas with nothing.
And so it's heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking and it's hard.
Yeah.
And you got to know what you're doing, because there's a process to it. And that, you have to trust the process. Yeah. The only way to trust the process, especially at the political level, is to be taught and to practice and to, how do you build trust in the individuals who manage that process for you? And how do you evaluate their performance?
That's a good point.
To make sure that you have the right person doing the job. I've told every official I've ever worked for, if I'm doing a bad job, don't become me. Fire me, get a better me. Yeah. But you can't be the emergency manager. You need to be the elected official or senior appointed official. It's important, that everyone understands their role, because you'll see that sometimes too, where when the system's breaking down, those with power will just assume the power that they have and start making decisions, but they are not a professional in the process of managing disaster and recovering from disaster. So bringing those folks in, if you don't already have them, is so important. It's a small industry, but it's a very unique. It's
unique and important.
It's crazy how and working in it this long, I go to disasters, I see the same people. Right, it's a very small crew of folks ultimately who work in disasters, and you know people who know each other. Yeah, and
how unique
it's a very small world, and
I love that. I love that. So before we move on from hurricane and talk about the new EOC, do you have any hurricane tips or anything for our community?
So the biggest thing, one, know your zone. That's been a major campaign this year.
Yes, for sure.
Evacuation zones have changed, but not for Dorchester County. Ours were changed a few years back, and so they remain the same. but know your zone, especially as you're moving in.
Yeah, and the town is in 3 counties, so
Right.
definitely check that out for sure.
Yeah,
Good
know
point.
your zone. It's critical. Then have a plan.
Yeah.
Have a plan. Have a kit. Right. Make sure you are ready to leave if you have to leave.
Yeah.
And ready to stay if you're going to stay.
Yeah.
Trusted information sources so that you can make the right decisions for you and your family.
Follow them, subscribe to them. Yep.
Don't trust the last event as your baseline for do I go, not go,
That's a good
because
point.
every event is different.
Yep.
And you have to make a brand new decision tree every time as to am I going to stay or am I going to go. You cannot base it off the last one
Yeah.
because the next one will be bigger or smaller or come from a different angle.
You
or
just might not know.
You don't know.
Yeah.
Trust that when we say go, it's the best interest to go.
Yeah.
Trust that I'm going to try to get you back, especially if
As
you're
fast as possible.
fast as possible,
Yeah.
because that's always a complaint. People think, well, if I evacuate, I won't be able to get back in.
Yeah, they want to go back to their homes.
Right.
Understandable.
Right.
But
Completely
we got to make
understandable.
sure you're safe being
Right.
able to come back.
Right.
You know?
And that's a big deal. And have some preparedness in the sense of, do you have all your documents in a secure place? And one of the things
Insurance,
I tell people,
car.
and I tell people all the time, if I said, you got 1 minute to grow inside your house, grab whatever you need, you're never going back. Your house will be destroyed in 1 minute. You got 1 minute. What could you grab in 1 minute that you need to start your life over standing in your front yard with whatever's in your hands?
Yeah.
It's a disaster.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So the other thing I tell people all the time is, get all those documents you need, all those bank account information, all the stuff you would need to restart your life and your family's life, and put it on a thumb drive and give it to a friend or family who doesn't live in your neighborhood.
Yeah, live somewhere
Right.
not where hurricanes
Where
hit.
I'm standing in my yard in my pajamas. I
Yeah.
know, okay, if I can just get to my uncle's house,
Yeah.
I'll get that thumb drive. It's got all the information I need to start my life over.
Yeah.
Everything's on
And
there.
we hope that never has to happen,
No.
but it's always better to be prepared because you just
Right.
never know.
And it helps with panic.
That's a good point too.
Right? It helps you to know, as horrible as it is to evacuate. And I've evacuated. I grew up on an island in the Chesapeake Bay, and we got evacuated a few times when I grew up for hurricanes. And I remember as a child, my mother crying as we left the house. Her and my father putting her brand new white couch up on the dining room table because she was afraid if the house floods, it'll ruin the couch.
Oh.
It seems like such a ridiculous thing, but at that moment, it was a brand new couch and it was expensive.
Yeah,
And,
that's one of the things. Yeah.
We had a hurricane bag growing up, and all of our family photo albums were kept in the hurricane bag in the closet.
Yeah.
So you
when
pull
you
it out
leave,
and
you
look
at
at
least
it.
grab it.
Because that was something that got left behind. Nothing happened to our home.
Because back then you didn't have cell phones
Right.
and stuff that
You actually
a
had
cloud
photo
that
albums, right.
holds your photos.
So from that day forward, everything stayed in the bag. You pulled it out, you looked at it, you put it back in the bag. So she could just grab the bag.
Yeah.
And so those are the kind of tips that I give to people all the time about how do you, if you're going to stand in your front yard in your pajamas, what do you need to start your life over?
I love that.
That's a big one. That's a huge thing for folks because I've watched the recovery process and I've watched people who don't know their accounts, don't know,
And then
and because of the when a disaster strikes and you're a victim. I mean, I was a cop for years, and I know after car accidents, when you ask someone, "What's your child's name?" there are times they look at their kid and they're like, "I cannot remember my kid's name," because their brain is
it's so much stress and
overly stimulated and worried and
Yeah.
fear and adrenaline and everything else. Same thing happens when people are in line trying to register with FEMA. And they can't remember their social security number. They can't remember their kids'
birthdays.
birthdays.
Your brain is in a moment
You're a victim.
Panic.
You're a victim.
Yeah, for sure.
The more you can do to prepare for that is critical.
I love that.
To helping yourself to recover less stressfully because you can't take away the stress, obviously, but
for sure.
Knowing you're a little bit more prepared is critical.
I love that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the new EOC.
Yeah.
We're in here right now, and I was able to take a tour a couple weeks ago. But like we talked about, we're going to go ahead and put some B-roll so you guys can see the new EOC. But can you just dig into the different sections of the EOC? So when a hurricane comes in, this place is packed up. And so this is where all the magic happens when it comes to emergency management. So can you just dig into the EOC, what went behind the new building, and then the different sections throughout the EOC?
So it's a combination of the Emergency Operations Center and the county's 911 Communications Center. And then some of our IT resources are in this building as well. It's built to withstand, hurricanes and earthquakes and everything else. So, and it's considerably larger than what we had in the past for the Emergency Management Office, considerably larger, which is absolutely wonderful for what we need, especially as a growing community. We now have the ability to house with under one roof, not just the county disaster management team, but also the municipalities can come in and share space and be together to make decisions together, to share resources, to communicate more effectively. And our leadership can talk directly because they're in the same room. That's a game changer for us. And
100%.
Size wise, this county level EOC rivals most state EOC.
Oh yeah,
it's big, and it's appropriately so based on the hazards that we have here. So we have, the room we're in now is the situation room. It's the policy room. It's where the department leaders and elected officials and whoever else needs to make decisions together will meet and discuss and brief and make those types of decisions. And then we have the main floor of the Emergency Operations Center where all the department liaisons or emergency support function representatives will sit and manage, working 12-hour shifts. Will manage the emergency based on the function that they own. And then we have a whole breakout room for a planning section. We have a breakout room for a citizen call center. So when citizens call in, they're calling and talking directly to employees who are sitting right here in the Emergency Operations Center with us. So they have the best real-time information, and we're able to gather information from citizens about what is happening in their neck of the woods so that we have awareness. We also have a Joint Information Center briefing room. Where we can manage media releases and actual interviews from the media.
Amazing.
We have
for me at least.
We have a bunk room and showers. So spending the night here will be a little bit easier for some. And then obviously my team has offices here. The 911 Center is here. They have their management offices here. We have a large industrial sized kitchen here. We have a ample storage in multiple locations for stuff. And then we also even have a garage where we're able to keep our very large unified command truck
awesome,
safe and sound, and can even hook it up to shore power inside the garage to be able to use for breakout space should we need even more space than we have. So it's a 45-seat EOC, which is big, and
it's awesome though. I think it's going to be used, and
it's already been used.
It's already been used, and it's going to have a huge impact on the operations because this is the operations you want to make sure are enhanced and are updated and innovated. Because it's important to make sure they're not behind. Because we're dealing with emergencies and livelihoods. And so
citizens don't care where the border is. They don't care about county lines. So we interact a tremendous amount with the Tri-County region, with the Charleston County and Berkeley County.
As you have to,
even Colleton County and Orangeburg if we need to, and the municipalities, and the citizen who's had a bad thing happen in their neighborhood, they don't care what the side of the truck says. They want help.
They just want help.
They need help at that moment. They don't care which police department or sheriff's office shows up. They need help. They need a fire truck. They need an ambulance. And we get that, and the municipalities get that. We need to work together. We need to be smart. Use resources wisely, because especially in the immediacy of a disaster, resources are scarce. It takes a long time to move an army, and you have a big disaster. You're moving an army in to help. So by day 3, day 5, you got tons of stuff to help. But day 1, you're still kind of on your own. And it's hard. It's those first few days, it's really tough, and it's a lot to manage. But having the resources here, under one roof, to manage it, to plan together, that's big, and that's going to help our citizens to have their problems addressed even quicker.
It's important.
And for information to be shared correctly.
Yep.
Because that's what they expect.
Yeah.
They that's the day they don't care. They want it just done. They want help. And that's the same goal for all of us.
Absolutely.
Local government, at the county level or municipality level, it's the same thing. We just want
at the end of the day, we want to help our community, work together as a team to make it happen.
And so we train together. We just did training for all of our emergency support functions and public works from everywhere in the whole county came together and had training. Law enforcement all came together, sat down together and figured out, okay, how are we going to run law enforcement during a disaster? How are we going to manage fire department response during a disaster? That's important for people to know too, that their leaders are speaking and figuring it out. And because those relationships have been formed, like I tell people all the time, there's one emergency manager in this county, it's me. I'm everyone's emergency manager. I work for the mayor as much as I work for the county council. That's important for everyone to know, and that as we have those relationships with everyone, and then they form these relationships with each other, on game day, it's not the first time they've met.
Exactly.
And so
there's a relationship.
There's a relationship there, and that it makes conversations, especially hard conversations, much easier to have.
100%.
And because that person, that person's heart, okay, they're up to their neck in it. That's why they're a little loud right now. Calm down. Let me help you. It's not, who the heck do you think you are? That doesn't happen because you have a relationship with these people. And that's huge too.
It is. It really is.
The emotional stress of a disaster is massive for those who are running it. It is trying. I'll never forget the first day when I arrived at Hurricane Katrina, and they took us on a tour of the coastline. And at the end of the day, all of us who had arrived together from Kansas, our faces hurt. And I was like, why did my jaw hurt? Like I was at the dentist, when they're pulling your mouth apart. And then we realized, because we spent the entire day with our jaw dropped open, that it pulled the muscles. Because you spent the whole day, eyes wide, jaw dropped open. Your brain can't comprehend what you're seeing. Right? It's that, this is America. It's not supposed to look like this. Right?
That's crazy.
And then, working disasters later on in life, I'm with people who it's their first time. Where I look at it and go, yep, seen this before. Okay, we got to get to work.
You can help them.
And you look at them, you go, they're going to need a minute.
Because
they're not ready, because their brain still hasn't computed what it's seeing. So there's a lot to that, and helping each other to have the relationships, do the training together.
It's important.
Practice together, so that on game day,
you're ready to go.
The work is that much harder, and the disaster is always going to be the disaster, but you're not the disaster.
That's a good point. But Thomas, hey, we're out of time with the podcast, but I swear we could do a whole second interview because there's so much that we could talk about with emergency management. I think hopefully we go through the season unscathed, but I think it would be beneficial for us to touch base again for another episode relatively soon, maybe midway through or at the end of hurricane season, to kind of talk about how maybe some of the stuff that we went through and all that. I think that would be really beneficial to our community. But
we can talk about earthquakes. We can talk about
there's so many other things we could talk about. So I appreciate your time meeting today. But until next time, like we said in the bio below, we will have all the information from both the town, state, county for different emergency management and preparedness and everything, links of who you should follow. Like when it comes to National Weather Service, the EMD, the town's pages, the county's pages, because that's going to be your main source. But until next time, thank you so much.
Thank you.